Hello, this is Ms. DB. In this video we are going to work more with quadratic functions and look at the parabolas that they create. So first we're going to talk about vertex of each and the max or min of each. So the vertex is the point at which that parabola turns from decreasing to increasing or from increasing to decreasing. So there will be one point that is the vertex in each of these graphs. If your graph opens upward, the vertex will be a minimum. If your vertex opens downward, then your vertex will be a maximum. The y value of the vertex is the minimum, the y value of the vertex is a maximum. You'll only have a minimum or a maximum, you won't have both. Let's look at this example here, example 4. It says to identify the vertex, then give the minimum or maximum value of the function. Remember that the minimum or maximum is the y value of the vertex. So you don't just write the vertex again, you only write the y value of it. So in example A here, we can see from the graph that the vertex is over 1 and up 5, so that is 1, 5. And it is a maximum. Sometimes you have to decide whether it's a maximum or a minimum. And it is a maximum because that is the highest that that graph will ever reach. And the maximum is the y value of that vertex, which is 5. In B, the vertex, the lowest this point ever goes, this graph ever goes, is at -2, -5. So remember, you're writing this as the coordinate x, comma, y. So you have to find that coordinate. And the minimum is -5 because that's the y value of the vertex. You're going to do this for a few graphs. So in 1 and 2, these are both opening downward, so you will have a maximum point. And in 3 and 4, these are both opening upward, so you will have a minimum point. Let's look at number 4. So in number 4, we have to name the vertex, so that will be x, comma, y. So we have to find the x value and the y value. And then for the minimum, we'll name the y value of the vertex. So this is -1. This would be -2 if we need it. And the vertex is at when x is -1. And the y value here is -1, -2, -3. So that's at -3. The minimum is just the y value, so that would be -3. Now in number 5, you're going to graph this function using technology. For example, you could use Desmos or Sketchpad or GeoGebra. You're going to graph this function, and then you can either sketch the graph of it here so you know what it looks like, or you can take a screenshot of it and paste it here. And then you'll answer the question, does your graph open upwards or downwards? What is the vertex? Is this a max or a min? So you're going to put that all together. All right, next we're going to talk about domain and range. So the domain is what are the possible x values of the function. And unless a specific domain is given for your problem, you can assume that the domain of a quadratic function is all real numbers. That means that x can be all negative numbers and x can be all positive numbers. There's no limit on the domain unless you're looking at some kind of a real-world situation where, you know, x is time and we wouldn't look at negative values of time or something like that. The range is what the possible y values are. The range will not be all real numbers because you can see in this example the range never will go below the vertex, so it'll never go here. So in this example, the range is always that y will be greater than or equal to 1. The range begins at the minimum value of the function where y equals 1. So in a parabola that's opening upward, you look at the minimum value to help determine what the range will be. If you have a function, like in this one, that has a maximum value, then your domain is still all real numbers, because that's what it will always be unless it's some real-world problem where you have to limit it. So that's kind of a given. The range for a parabola that's opening downwards, you again look at the y value of the vertex, which is the maximum in this point. In this one, it's 4. And in this case, your range will be that y will be all numbers less than or equal to 4. To make the symbol less than or equal, you can just underline the less than or greater than symbols on your keyboard. Let's look at how to do one of these. Let's look at number 7. In number 7, it's opening upwards. So there will be a minimum value right here. And we can see that that's at 6. So let's keep that in mind while we do this. So we need the vertex. Well, the vertex is marked. I just marked it there again in red. The x value of the vertex is at -2. The y value is at -6. Does this graph have a maximum or a minimum? This one has a minimum. What is this value? That's the y value of the vertex. The domain, all real numbers. That's what you write. Don't write anything else, just write all real numbers. The range, I already have the beginning part of the range. It'll be y, we're looking at the y values, and I have the greater than or equal sign. Because this graph is opening upwards, so my range will be all y values greater than or equal to -6, which will be equal this, and this will be related. The minimum value and the range. In number 6 and in number 8, you'll have a maximum value, and this maximum value will be related to the range. In number 8, it doesn't have the symbol to use after it. Let's type that symbol using our keyboard. So instead of greater than or equal, this one will be less than or equal. So first I'm going to do the underline symbol, and then I'm going to hit the less than, and then I do underline again. So I'm using the format tools in Word to do underlining. Let's see if I can move this over to show you what the underline tools look like. The underline tool is in the formatting tools at the top of your Word document. This means to underline. So you press this, and then you do your symbol, and then you press it again to turn off underlining. And then you put the value of the maximum, whatever you got for what is this maximum value. And there's a couple more to do to practice that. Now in number 11, you're going to be making this graph using Desmos or Sketchpad or some other technology. And then you can again either sketch the graph here by hand, especially if you're working with a printout, you might want to do that. If you do that, be careful, especially of where your vertex is and some other important features. And then you can also just get a screenshot and paste it here. So it's y equals x squared minus 4x minus 3. I'm going to use Desmos and show you what that would look like. So I have the graph in Desmos, y equals x squared minus 4x minus 3. I just typed in exactly what it was for number 11, and I haven't turned it on yet, but I'll click this to show what that graph would look like. This actually does show some points on here. If we click on special points, such as the vertex, it will tell you the value of that vertex. It'll also give you the y-intercept, which is where the graph crosses the y-axis. And something that we'll be talking about in the next assignment is the x-intercepts, which are also called the roots. And in this one, they're not integer values, but you can get a very good approximation from Desmos will tell you almost exactly what those are, rounded to several decimal places. So that would be good enough for us. So we don't need all of these to show up when I get the screenshot, but I do want the vertex. So now I can either take a screenshot of this or I can get a link. You can get a link by clicking on Share Graph and then copying this and pasting it into the Word document. So let me do that first. When you paste this into the Word document, click the spacebar after it one time to make this a clickable link for me so that I can click on it and see what you got. I'm going to go back to Desmos though, because I want to get a screenshot of this instead so that I can look at it while I am answering the rest of those questions. So I'm going to use a tool in Windows called Snip and Sketch, and see if I and show you what this looks like. I'm going to get a new one. And you can search for this in your Windows bar and find this. Or whatever other tool you're using to do screenshots or snips is what this is. So this is just a little one. And now I need to copy this. So that's this tool. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the worksheet and I'm going to paste it at the bottom so it doesn't like take up all of our space. So this is right here. This is the graph that I had. And I'm going to move it up a little bit so that I can look at that while I am looking at the questions that I had. Because where are my questions? There's my questions. So I'm going to make it a little smaller too so I can fit it on there. And really, I don't need the equation. It's fine to have that on there because then, especially if you're getting graded on it, I can make sure that there's no mistakes, or if there is, I can say, oh, you forgot to put a negative in front of the 4, and things like that, but I don't need it for this. All right, so there's my graph. I just went on top of the other one so we could see the questions. So we're going to answer these questions looking at the graph. Does your graph open upwards or downwards? Well, you can probably tell it opens upwards. What is the vertex? Remember, I found that point, and I even made it show before I did my screenshot. So you would just have to type 2, 7 here. -7, sorry. And is this a maximum or minimum? It's a minimum. You can highlight these if you want instead of retyping them. What is the value of the max or min? This is the minimum value. It's the y value of the vertex. What is the domain? Unless there's some reason that it's not, this will always be all real numbers. Now the range. I know it's going to be y. Is it going to be less than or equal or greater than or equal to the y value of the vertex? In this case, it'll always be greater than. So I'm going to click my underline sign on my tools, and I'm going to do the greater than sign, and then I'm just going to type the -7. And that's all you have to do. All right, let me know if you have other questions, and have a wonderful day.